Hello and welcome to Navigating the Chapters of Challenge with Tele. Hope you're all having a great time today. Good day today. I'm a bit nasally because I have a bit of a blocked nose, so bear with me. Today we have a returning guest in the house. We've got Fela Adewusi with us again today, and we'll be discussing a topic which I think is very important to discuss. But before we go into it, I'm going to ask Fela to introduce himself again. Just say hello to us once more. Say hello to everyone, Fela.
Hello, everyone, and thank you again, Tele, for having me on the podcast again this afternoon.
Yeah, so thank you for coming again, for accepting our invitation. So today, we're going to be talking about marriage, an aspect of marriage, and very soon we're going to be starting more or less like a series of conversations about challenges that we that people have in marriages. And when I was doing research on challenges in marriage, I was reading a lot of things, and I was finding out that there are at least one report said there are at least 25 common marriage problems. Another one said there are 12 main marriage problems. A third one said the five most common problems in marriage. But one thing that was common to all of them was that they all mentioned communication. Communication as a problem in marriage. And I just thought, okay, so let's talk about communication in marriage, challenges that people have with communication in marriage. And also in my research, I found there's a survey by Your Tango. It says that the most common factor for divorce in marriage is communication problems. That's one of the most common factors. And apparently 65% of divorces come about because of a lack of communication. So here's my question to you, Fela. Where do you think this problem with communication starts from? Why do we find these kind of problems in marriage, and what's your take on it?
Okay. First of all, my understanding and belief is communication, and like it's defined, is a two-way
thing.
Street.
Yeah.
It's there is the communicator and there is the receiver.
Yeah.
Now, when we say, or when there's a breakdown in communication, it means is either this message being sent by the sender is not being received, or there is something that is interfering with the message. Either it's not being received correctly, or is not being communicated in a way for the recipient to actually receive that information and process it correctly, and both parties being on the same page.
Yeah.
So that's the main thing when you say problems with communication is there is communication, but information is not being passed across.
Yeah.
And the essential thing in every mode of communication is the recipient and the sender are on the same page, understanding what the sender is saying and the receiver is receiving that message. So it's like a radio, or like your TV or whatever, or your phone. You cannot get messages, or you can't receive a channel if you're not on the right frequency.
Yeah.
So for good communication, both parties have to be on the same frequency. So that's the fundamental thing about communication. So when they say communication is one of the main challenges, it means that's an area where most people either they're not listening to what the other party is saying, or they're not saying it the way the other party is going to understand what they're saying.
Okay.
So when the thing with marriage is, firstly, you have to understand and know your spouse.
Yeah.
If you don't know their language and you don't understand how to communicate with them, then there's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But before we even delve and start going so deep into marriage, there's so many things that are fundamental itself, even before people get married.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the problems
Start from. Yeah.
Because like the Bible says, if the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do?
Yeah.
And it says, except two people agree, they cannot work together.
Yeah.
A lot of people go into relationships looking at it only from their perspective, thinking, oh, this doesn't matter, that doesn't matter, he or she is going to change when we come together, X, Y, Z. And for me, you're taking on too many variables that you have no control over. So, in essence, the issue of communication has to start even from the basis of friendship.
Yeah.
Because if you have a friend who either is only interested in lording it over you or telling you what to do, not listening to your opinion, you go into a relationship with that person, don't expect them to change.
Yeah.
Because
that's who they are.
That's who they are. So that's the fundamental thing about communication. And once communication breaks down, you just find that the two parties in the relationship are on, two parallel roads, which are never going to meet.
Yeah.
And eventually, they're just going to go their different ways.
So what you're saying is that when you're in the relationship, you should be working on the communication before you jump into a marriage. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, it's like, I read a book once many years ago, and it says communication is the Christian's vital breath. Your relationship can never develop or grow if there is no communication. Now, communication is not just verbal.
Yeah.
There is inverbal or non-verbal communication. You communicate in so many ways.
Yeah.
I mean, those of us that come from African backgrounds, when you're growing up and you're being naughty, your parents only need to look at you and you get the message.
Immediately.
Between husband and wife, there are many nuances that go on that they don't have to say what is in their mind and the other party. Where the communication flows well, the other party knows
immediately what's going on. Yeah.
So that's the essence of the importance of communication.
Okay. So when you get into a relationship with somebody and you're thinking of marrying that person and you find that you're not communicating properly with that person, should that be seen as a red flag? Is that a red flag?
It's when you say you're not communicating correctly, it's if the person you're dating or you intend to marry doesn't talk to you, or just wants to, everything is about their own agenda, you know you're going to have a problem. That you don't need a prophet to tell you you're going to have a problem in that relationship. If you're in a relationship with someone who has very little regard for you and is only about what they want and very little about no consideration or very little consideration for you or your opinion or what you think, that marriage is doomed. Is already on. You're building on a very wrong foundation. Because if that person does not treat you kindly, does not talk to you kindly when you're dating, how is he going to do it when they're married to you?
So if you're dating somebody who doesn't talk much, he's not much. He or she is not much of somebody who talks. You get. Is that something to be worried about? Because when you marry that person, it's not like they're going to change. And then you can't expect that the communication, or should I use communication in that scenario? You can't expect them to talk even more. So is that a problem? Should that be seen as another red flag?
Okay, if I get you correctly, are you saying if the person is more of an introvert than an extrovert?
Yes.
Right.
So because when you get married to that person, it's not like they're going to change.
See, the thing, like we said earlier, communication is not only verbal.
Yeah.
There are ways that people communicate without even talking much.
Yeah.
Verbal is expressive.
Yeah.
You say what's on your mind, because we have been married for 31 years by God's grace.
Yeah.
If just staring in your face, I can't tell what you're thinking if you don't say it.
Yeah.
I can read what I think are the signs of, oh no, something is not right here.
Yeah.
But I really may not be able to put my finger on the exact thing until it's voiced.
Yeah.
So someone being an introvert is not necessarily negative.
Yeah.
Provided if they're with their friends and they're comfortable and they talk and they chat, but when they're with you, they're like, look, I don't talk much.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Because that means when they're with you, when you marry them, they're going to gravitate in that direction.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't excuse what should not be excused.
Yeah.
If someone does not feel like talking to you, or look, I'm not in a mood, and they're forever not in the mood, you're postponing
the evil day.
Yeah,
exactly. So why is communication sometimes hard in marriage? Why do you think communication is sometimes hard in marriage?
I don't think communication is that hard in marriage. It's all about the individuals that are involved.
Okay.
See, for me, when you look at why you married somebody, first question is if someone says they're having issues in their marriage, and one of the issues is we don't talk.
Yeah.
The first question I would always want to ask is, what was the attraction to this person?
Were you talking before?
Yeah. If you were talking before and you're not talking now, something has changed.
Yeah.
If you were not talking before, then why did you marry this person?
If you knew you wanted somebody who would talk to you.
Because marriage is not just about passion. And I think this is where a lot of people, I'm assuming, I'm not, what I say is not necessarily absolute, but a lot of people come about, I've heard statements like, there's no spark.
Yeah.
There's no, I'm not feeling.
Yeah.
These are things that are superficial.
Yeah.
If the passion is the only reason why you married someone, passion will die. That passion is not going to be there every single day.
Yeah.
So for me, one of the main fundamentals of marrying someone is someone who is your friend.
Yes, exactly.
Because when you're relating with someone who is your friend, you can laugh about the same thing you talked about 3 weeks ago, and it's still funny. There is a bond. There is a symbiotic relationship between the two of you.
You can talk about the silliest thing and find it funny.
Find it funny.
Yeah.
You want to be in that person's space. You want to be in their company. You want to be around them.
Yeah.
It's not just about the passion that you are with that person.
Yeah.
You feel comfortable. You feel relaxed
in that person's presence.
You feel you can hand over your life to them, and you are not afraid. A good friendship is based on a symbiotic relationship. But any relationship that is based on passion, only when the passion goes,
and when it fades, I don't think it goes completely. I think it fades. It's undulating. It can be undulating. The cycles, exactly.
Yeah, but a time will come when passion is not going to be the driving force of your relationship.
Yes.
So what happens at that time? That person or you, one of you will gravitate towards something else, because there will be a new interest. There will be something else that's drawing your attention.
Yeah.
So that's where the friendship and openness, and that's where the communication comes in.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that when you have your spouse and yourself are good friends, that doesn't mean you're not going to have your challenges. You will.
Yeah. Every
relationship has its challenges.
Yeah.
They're bound to have challenges.
Yeah.
Well, there's a way that you're going to walk through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When both of you are heading in the same direction, the reason why you got together in the first place is to make the relationship work.
Mm-hmm.
Then you will do what's necessary. A lot of people want a good marriage, a good relationship, but they don't want to put the work in.
Yes.
And that's where the problem is for many.
Yeah.
The work, there's a lot of work, and the work in a relationship is what's this expression? Sometimes in a relationship, both parties will be like, you're like the one holding the hand of Aaron.
Yeah.
I'm Aaron holding the hand of Moses.
Yeah.
Because you're going to prop one another.
You're
going to support one another.
Yeah.
Each party is not always at their best.
Yes. All the time.
But when you're with your friend, they'll help you. They'll support you.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean if you do something that is not appropriate, they'll tell you as it is. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean they're going to discard you. As long as you're both on the same page. Everybody's going to make mistakes. There'll be errors. There'll be challenges. But when you have the same focus and the same mindset, and you can talk openly about everything and anything, you have a strong chance of your relationship surviving.
I often hear people say that I'm not being heard. I'm not being heard in maybe in their marriages. What do you think that means? When someone says, I'm not being heard, what does that mean?
I'm not being heard is exactly as it is. There's a reason. I mean, okay, if we want to break it down, why do you think you're not being heard? Mm-hmm. Is it because you want your way?
Okay.
And you're not listening to what the other party is saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you dealing with someone who only enjoys their voice? And you're not being heard is not just going to start in one day.
Yeah.
It's a gradual, these things build up and they build up. Mm-hmm. If you notice you're not being heard when you're dating, you're not going to be heard when you're married.
Yes.
And you don't have to, and excuse me, like I say to young people when I've had the opportunity of counseling people, listen, when you want to get married to someone, your list of, I always say you've got to have like 2 boxes. You've got the deal breaker box.
Yeah.
And then you have the, don't let me say permissible, but I can live with box.
Okay.
Now, the deal breaker box does not have to be a long list.
Yeah.
But there are core things that are fundamental to you. They're important to you that if one of those is missing, there's no point in continuing the relationship.
Yeah.
So each person decides what is fundamental, what is essential to their own being.
Yeah.
And that's those ones. The person can be the nicest. The person can be everything. But if one of those key things are missing, and if you excuse it, it's going to come back to bite you.
Yeah. It's going to come back to bite you.
So when people say they're not being heard, it's because oftentimes it may be because they're being taken for granted.
Yeah.
It may be because they've allowed so many things. Now they're trying to now, what's the word? They're now trying to put their foot down, So that may be the reason. But a lot of times they've excused, they've allowed little things, little foxes have crept in, and they've excused those things. Now they're dealing with a monster.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they sometimes, and a lot of times, people don't really want to accept responsibility.
Yeah.
And many times you hear people say, what can I do?
Yeah.
It's difficult. Well, there's nothing that is easy in life.
There's nothing that's easy in life. So how do you think people can fix poor communication in marriage?
fixing poor communication has to. I think the first thing and the first mistake many people would make is like the scripture that I referred to earlier, except two people agree. Now, you or I cannot make someone do something. They have to decide they want to do it. Mm-hmm. So you find a lot of people saying they want to, oh, he's going to change. I can't change. Nobody can change anybody.
Yeah.
It's until that individual has made up their mind that I want to do things differently.
Yeah.
You may influence it, you may encourage them, but the decision is theirs. So
fixing
poor communication is you two sitting together, sitting down and saying, look, this is
a problem.
An issue.
Yeah.
Like you said, a problem identified is already half solved.
Yeah.
If you say there's a problem and your partner or spouse does not see it as a problem,
that's a problem.
That's a major one.
That's a problem.
How do you
resolve it? Yeah.
How do you resolve it?
Yeah.
You both have to agree. The solution is something else, but you both have to agree there is an issue here. And once that person agrees with you, sometimes, I mean, we men can be very difficult. We don't want to, we feel...
Hey, is that so?
Oh, yes. We want to feel, the macho man in you. No, I don't want to. Yes, but at the end, it now depends on how a message is being communicated. If someone, and oftentimes, let me say, because sometimes or many times people always think it's the man that is the problem in a relationship.
Not always. Sometimes we women can be headstrong as well.
Exactly. So it takes you to know how and when to pass a message across that the other party is going to hear you.
Yes.
Shouting, nagging, being cold is many times do not resolve
the problems. Yeah.
You need to know how to get the message across, the person to hear you at the frequency you want to be heard and the way you want to be heard. And they have to understand where you're coming from. So it could be from the man to the woman or the other way around, but it has to be presented in a way at a time the person can hear you. Any other way, you're just going to be hitting a brick wall.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people, because especially, like the Bible says, you can be angry but don't sin.
Yeah.
I always make that synonymous with when you are angry, don't talk.
Okay.
Because there's a proverb from where I come, once an egg drops and is broken,
you can't really put it together again.
And words are like that.
Yeah.
The Bible says that the life and death are in the power of the tongue. When you talk, when you are angry, more often than not, you say things you wish you didn't say. So when someone is angry, that's the time just to walk away, cool off, get a cool head, be composed. Think about what you want to say, how you want to say it, structure
what you want to say.
Exactly. And not just spill things out. Because when you're angry, more often than not, your information is going to be scattered, that the person you're talking to won't even probably know what exactly
are you trying to say
here.
Yeah, because when you're angry, sometimes you can't say things exactly. Even you are probably not seeing it correctly. The anger is what is driving you, so you can't really give the message across to the person, even if you're saying the right thing, even if you're right. The way you present what you want to say, I think, is one of the things that need to be addressed. Because I find that sometimes we women, we just we begin to shout, and and we lose it sometimes, and we don't say what we need to say the way we want to say it, and then the men just put up like a front, and I like, you know what, you're not gonna get through to me anyway if you're coming up with this attitude. And it can work both ways.
Yes,
It can work both ways. And I just wanted to say there was something I read that said people should schedule communication. In marriages, couples should schedule their communication times when they talk. What do you think of that? So, because when I read that, I thought, first of all, oh, schedule, how do you do that? But then I remember when the children were young, we did something similar. We used to send them to bed by 8, and we had time. After that, every day they went to bed by 8. No, there was nothing that was happening that was going to make them stay up beyond 8 o'clock. They were in bed by 8. And that gave us time to talk and just chill together. So, do you think it's a good idea for couples to schedule their communication time to talk and stuff like that? What do you think of that?
Scheduling communication, number one, is, let me use the phrase, if there's anything like that, I think it's subjectively prescriptive.
Okay.
Now, in the sense that there's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
In communication.
Yeah.
Everybody would have to work out what works
for them. Yeah.
Okay, say, for instance, a husband and wife who do shift work.
Yeah.
And their shifts most of the time are because of the children. One has to work, and when the one is coming back, that's when the other one is going.
Yeah.
Where are they going to schedule?
Yeah.
Except when they both have days off together.
Yeah.
Which may or may not always work.
Yeah.
So that's why when you say scheduling itself, it may be a good idea for someone who does 9 to 5 and their days are structured. But for someone whose days are not structured, that prescription is not going to work. So every relationship and marriage will have to find what works for them.
Okay.
That's why I said it's subjectively prescriptive.
Yeah. Okay. So if it works for you, then schedule it. Just find the thing about it is find how you can talk to one another, spend time talking one another. Yeah. Okay. But then sometimes in marriage, people have a fear of expressing themselves, expressing their feelings. For instance, maybe something's gone on, and maybe I spoke to you about it the first time, and I didn't like the way you responded. If something similar happens again, I probably will just shut down and not say anything. And so in such scenarios, it begins to build up.
Yeah.
It begins to build up. So what's the best way to deal with such things? If you're not happy with the way somebody's reacting to things you have said, what's the best way forward?
For me, it boils down to vulnerability with your partner.
Okay.
How should I feel? What am I protecting?
Okay.
What am I guarding?
Okay.
If I'm in a relationship and I'm married to someone, then except is evident that I'm being taken advantage of, there's nothing for me to guard. I mean, it is natural for one to, probably crawl into your shell and not feel. But if your partner knows you and knows you well, you can be talking, but they know that there's no flow. There's something that is wrong. And I think for me, and probably maybe, and I could be very wrong, I put my hands up, for many African men, and I say this quote and unquote, so it doesn't apply to everybody, we don't necessarily find it easy to apologize.
Yeah.
And I think that's one area where men need to work on. Because I'm not going to always be right. Even to your children, when they say, look, this, and they say something to you, and you realize you goofed in that instance, you're not subjugating your madness by saying, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. This is what I meant. It's not going to happen again. That does not make you less of the man of the father. Rather, it makes them respect you
even more.
Even more.
Yeah.
So I think in instances, if a woman is crawling into her shell,
Or the man even.
or the man is crawling into their shell, and the spouse or their partner notices, you should be able to draw it out. Sometimes they may not even want to talk to you about what they're going through at that time. You know that, just let them know that, look, when you feel ready to talk, I'm here to listen.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If I've done something wrong, I mean, to err is human.
Yeah.
To forgive is divine.
Yeah.
Everybody will always make mistakes at some
point. Yes.
It is, and many times you may not even be aware that you have erred.
Yeah.
When someone points it out to you and you hear what they're saying, there's nothing wrong in saying, hey, you know what, I'm sorry. It was never meant to come across like that.
Like that.
This was what I was thinking about. And if you miss it and you say you're sorry,
yeah,
just accept, admit. That just makes you human.
Human.
And the person you're relating with will know, okay, that's it. He's apologized.
Okay. So I think saying I'm sorry is one thing that's very hard for a lot of people. It's like admitting defeat.
It's not defeat. Because this is what, you know, I said, what are you holding on to?
Yeah.
Now, when you use that phrase defeat, it means you're counting.
Yeah.
Oh, I lost there, I have to win there. Okay. I lost there, I have to win there. If you're in a relationship with that kind of mindset, you will create problems where none exist.
Yes.
Because now you're pitching, everything is about not wanting to lose either an argument or a position, whereas you should, Bible says, to become one. You're not losing anything to your partner as long as they're not taking undue advantage of you.
Yeah. But then sometimes saying sorry can just be a compromise. So it's like, okay, for the sake of peace, let me just say sorry. Let me just say sorry. Does that work? Does that always work?
Well, it's
should we actually be doing that?
There are times when it works.
Okay.
There are times when it doesn't. That I've said sorry does not necessarily mean I agree.
Okay.
Now, I like to make a comparison between submissiveness and subjugation.
Okay.
Now, the difference is, when you say sorry, does not mean you're subjugating yourself to someone.
Okay.
You probably are looking for a level playing field where calm heads can now have an opportunity. Sanity can prevail.
Yes.
And saying sorry now does not mean you cannot revisit the issue.
Okay.
A few days later.
Yeah.
And say, look, can we talk about this? I said sorry, yes, but this and this and this. When the environment is conducive for such a conversation.
Okay.
Not when it's heated.
Okay. But isn't that also sweeping it under the carpet then? Shouldn't you be dealing with the issues when the issue is hot?
No. It's not every issue you can actually deal with. When you say when the issue is hot, when it's pertinent, that's what I want to say more. Again, when you say when the issue is pertinent, are you talking from a cool head? Or you're talking from someone who is, if you're the kind of person that says, we need to deal with this now. It's not always best to deal with everything now.
Yeah.
I'll give an example. It may not always be very whatever. When the woman that was caught in adultery when they brought the woman that was caught in adultery to Jesus and said, this woman was caught in adultery and this is what the law says, what do you say?
Yeah.
Christ never responded immediately. and he was drawing in the sand.
Yeah.
It took his time.
Yes.
And when he responded, said, let him who has no sin be the first to cast a stone. That's the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what Christ was thinking at that time.
Yeah.
But it took his time to find the right answer for the people, because they were looking for an opportunity to say he said this, his rubber stamped this.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he wasn't encouraging adultery.
Yeah.
But he said to the woman, go and sin no more. Where are your accusers?
Yeah.
Go and sin no more.
Yeah.
So that it's always dealing with, you can deal with things, but sometimes you have to sit back and have a broader view of what's going on before you decide on how to respond or react.
How to react.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's very, very important, to be able to just take a step back.
Yeah.
Take a step back and then come back with a better or with a right frame of mind to answer the questions or to attend to the issue. Okay. So I was also reading about communication, and one of the things they were talking about in communication as a key factor of communication is compassion. Compassion. When you're communicating with your spouse, there has to be some compassion. Do you want to elaborate on that before we end this? We can't finish this topic here in one session, so we're going to have a part 2 to this. So before we finish part 1, let's talk about just the compassion aspect of it, and we'll probably end it on that note.
Yeah, I think the compassion for me means speaking to your spouse in a what's the word?
Respective?
Yeah, in
Respectful.
a respectful manner.
Yeah.
Even if you're in the right.
Yeah.
That
even when they are wrong and you're right.
Even when they are wrong and you are right, you don't have to use a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Like they say, why kick somebody who is already down? Mm-hmm. You know she's wrong. She knows it's wrong. Why are you going to make it worse?
Okay.
So that's why you need to, when you're speaking with someone, you're speaking in a calm tone and respectful way does not mean you are encouraging either a behavior or an action that you're talking about.
Okay.
You're only showing that you're human.
Okay.
Because if you speak to your spouse in a derogatory manner, especially in front of others,
your children,
your children, your family members, in public, not only do you disrespect her, none of those people now feel they have to respect that person.
Yeah.
Because you have done it in public.
Yeah. But indirectly, you're disrespecting yourself.
Not necessarily. It all depends on how you handle. No, what do you mean disrespecting yourself? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes,
if you disrespect your wife in public, you're disrespecting yourself.
That does not make you a man, quote and unquote. Rather, it shows you as a bully.
Yeah. So, so compassion is very important.
Compassion is very important because the more subtle your voice and the way you present information, the higher the chances the person you're speaking with are likely to hear you.
What you're saying, yeah. Because when you come with that aggression and you're too forceful and all of that, sometimes the message, even if it's a good message, will not be heard.
There is time to be forceful, but it's not every time.
Yeah, it's not every time.
You need to know what to apply, when to apply
it. Yeah. Okay. So on that note, we're going to end part 1 of this conversation about communication challenges in marriage. And we will be back again soon to discuss part 2. We're going to take it up again because this is something that we need to talk about more often. I think it will help people who are thinking about getting married to know how to navigate their marriages when they eventually get into marriages, and then avoid a lot of these pitfalls that we find ourselves in our marriages. So I just want to say thank you to Fela again for coming on today, and we'll see you in part 2. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening into part 1 of Communication Challenges in Marriage. We'll be back again with part 2 soon. So thank you. Take care and have a good day. God bless. Bye.